Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Cooldowns. These episodes are short, actionable podcasts pulled from previous interviews and content we've been publishing for the last several years. So go for a walk, hop on the rower, or clip into the bike for this cooldown episode. I do want to talk about kind of the fitness of the brain. That had me very fascinated when I was reading some stuff about, you looked like you had some introduction to plant-based medicines and ways to keep the brain, fit and healthy. Do you think that the brain should be exercised in and of itself, or physical exercise, is the exercise for the brain?
Wow. This is probably the most fascinating question I have ever been asked on any podcast. I think it's the former, and the reason I say that is because, exercise is just like any other basic instinct. It's treated as a reward, and the brain gravitates towards rewards. The chemical of reward is dopamine. I actually have dopamine tattooed on my left arm.
That's awesome.
Because if there's any neurochemical that described me most, it would be the neurochemical of pain and pleasure, which is dopamine. So the brain, when it pumps out dopamine, and when it releases dopamine, it's typically in response to either a pleasurable stimulus or a painful stimulus. The brain can't discriminate between both. So that's why, like exercise, for example, is a great natural therapy for people who are at risk for drug addiction or any sort of addiction. This has been studied in the lab. This is something I studied during my PhD, and other colleagues of mine have studied, is that you can get animals to be just as addicted to exercise as they are to drugs of abuse. So yes, I think the need for exercise is internally regulated. And obviously, to me, I think that's the explanation why CrossFit is so popular. There's something about that pleasurable pain of CrossFit that just, when we say people are drinking the CrossFit Kool-Aid, that is why, is because the dopamine, I guarantee, and nobody studied this, I guarantee the dopamine response to CrossFit is just so unique and so fine-tuned and calibrated at the level of the brain that it can't help but want to, have more CrossFit.
And is it something that you can become accustomed to? Because caffeine, obviously, if you're consuming large amounts of caffeine, you develop some sort of tolerance, right? You either need more or whatever. And is that the same when it comes to exercise and dopamine release?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge body of literature looking at dopamine tolerance. I mean, most of it isn't with exercise at all. It's all with drug addiction. But there's 3 phases of tolerance. There's a phase of rapid tolerance, which is usually within the first 72 hours. And then there's chronic tolerance, which is, after weeks and weeks of this repeated pleasurable or painful stimulus.
So how about you specifically in exercise? Because you are, a really high level athlete. Do you feel like you have to really go there to get that dopamine release?
Yes, I am addicted to exercise. And I know now that I'm not training for the games anymore, and I'm just, trying to maintain the level of fitness that I want to, I know that I have a tolerance because on a daily basis, I follow the gym's programming, but I always need to do more. I always like to do a hero workout or an endurance-based workout. I can't, a lot of times, when you're training for the games, you're doing those short, high-intensity bursts and the OPT style workouts.
Oh, yeah.
I hate those. I mean, even though I'm trained as that type of athlete, there's something about doing the hero workouts and the enduring nature of it that I gravitate towards that. And I honestly think it's because of my need to get my, dopamine pump.
That's awesome. So let's shift back to maybe performance for the brain. What do you think that, if you wanted to, get your brain in shape, if you will? I mean, is there supplements or daily practice? How do you, keep your brain fit?
Well, I had the pleasure of spending a week with the guys at Barbell Shrugged, Mike Bledsoe. I learned so much about fitness and mindfulness from them that we're like sort of implementing a lot of stuff that they do into our own studies now. I used to be a half believer of meditation until I really started reading into Wim Hof's stuff. And then, honestly, spending a week with Mike, we went to the world's largest meditation gardens. And then I also did the float tank. I really think that is a great way to enhance mental functioning. And I've looked a little bit into the research of it. There's like Buddhist monks can selectively and actively induce a state of sleep because they're so in tune and so present with what state of consciousness they're in and what the state of their environment is that they can force themselves asleep while being awake. There's people who have actually gone up to Nepal and have studied Buddhist monks and have looked at their brain activity. And their brain activity, it almost mirrors that of any person's when you're in like a state of deep sleep. So that's what I think that's the new frontier for
Yeah, it's gaining
optimized performance.
a lot of popularity, and I've been doing the Wim Hof method for a while now. Is it something that you practice regularly?
I do it every morning.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Brian McKenzie came to our gym at CrossFit Terminus, let's see, March of 15. He's actually coming again this upcoming March. And the first time I did it, I felt so euphoric. But yeah, ever since he came, I do it every single morning. I'm not sure how much it's helped me physically, but like in terms of my mental outset for the day, it just, on days that I don't do it, I suffer.
And do you consider, because being someone who actually does the Wim Hof method, sometimes I differentiate, meditation and the Wim Hof method, but I feel like they can almost be done simultaneously. Do you kind of?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Is that so? Is that your meditation as well as like during the Wim Hof method?
Exactly. Yes, that's my meditation. So I feel like that's my whole morning in general. I am a productive person, but I don't jump right into things in the morning. I've always made it a habit to live very close to work since I was 18, like walking to class and all of that. My morning consists of waking up, doing Wim Hof, getting ready, and then drinking coffee and listening to music as I walk to work. So I feel like the first hour of my morning is like complete mindfulness and meditation and being with myself and being alone before I jump into my day.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and it does take a little bit of time, but I mean, I think it's well worth it.
It's so worth it for your mental health.
I completely agree. So let's go over some plant-based medicines, or maybe is it neurotropics versus nootropics? Like they're different, right?
I've always heard nootropics. I haven't heard of, neurotrophic, you're thinking of neurotrophic.
Yeah.
So neurotrophic is a naturally released growth factor by your brain. The most commonly studied one is brain-derived growth factor. And they're essentially involved with repairing damaged neurons, nerve cells, and then also supplying nerve cells with daily nutrients or resources that they need to keep functioning. Those are neurotrophics.
Okay.
And those have been widely studied, of course, with Alzheimer's and exercise, because exercise, of course, is recommended for people at risk for Alzheimer's like me. And the reason is because exercise naturally increases the release of these neurotropics by the brain.
Okay. And how about nootropics? So
nootropics are materials found in the environment. So obviously they're plant-based organics that have been shown to have the same effect as on exercise, in that they increase neurotropics and the release of other brain boosting or like brain recovery, brain repairing pathways of the brain. One of the ones that I haven't worked or have studied much with nootropics, but a lot of products that have come out or have ever been advertised as brain boosting include yerba mate, which is a plant-based source of caffeine. But yerba mate, there's a lot more caffeine with yerba mate than, classic coffee. And then the other one is alpha GPC. I think that's it. Yeah, alpha GPC, which actually activates similar neurochemical pathways as caffeine typically does.
And do you take any of those on a daily or weekly basis?
I have yerba mate every single day. I am addicted to caffeine. I mean, I wouldn't say I need caffeine to function, but I also drink healthy caffeine. I'm not drinking energy drinks. I'm drinking yerba mate tea. I love Focus Aid. I do some work with Aaron and his company, and Focus Aid. It's great. It's a great blend, and that's, I'm not using it as a sales pitch. Like, I was using Focus Aid before I actually became involved with the branding of Focus Aid.
Yeah, I've had some Focus Aid before. I think it's pretty good stuff. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, their new one. That's what I'm drinking right now. Actually, is Life Aid.
Yeah, I just finished some of those. Yeah, I just finished a case. Actually, I got it right when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. The blend of cayenne pepper with turmeric. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, it's really good. Then I think it has some ginger in there too, which really makes it awesome.
Yeah, I've also taken Koyos at one point. I haven't really taken that at all. But if I do get any nootropic within a day, it's typically yerba mate.
Okay, and you said that's primarily through tea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I buy the yerba mate tea at Trader Joe's.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna check that out for sure. I think that's something I've other than Focus Aid from Life Aid company, and I think Alpha Brain from On It. Those are pretty much the only nootropics I've ever tried, but I'm interested in some of the tea that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I've had the stuff from On It. I was at On It a month ago. My buddy Connor works for On It now, and I just stopped in. I was in Austin to see my college roommate. That's a cool place, man.
Oh, it's really cool. Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to go, well, you've been, so yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in Dallas, not far from them. I've been down there a few times. For some different things, but yeah, they have a really awesome facility. All right, so I'm going to completely shift gears on you here. So say there's a nationwide curriculum implemented, and the president calls you up and he says that you're responsible for a chapter of this new book that's going in every school in America. So every single kid in America, they're going to have to read your chapter, and they're going to have to be tested on it and pass before they're even allowed to graduate high school and pursue further education. So given that, what's your chapter of the book? What's your chapter on? What's it about in this book?
Ooh, wow. I am loving your questions, man.
Thanks.
Okay, the scientific method, because, we live in this world now of hashtags, of alternative facts, and people not doing, using their common sense and just taking the time to take 2 minutes and look up the validity of certain information, is making sure that kids understand the scientific method that you are taught in 3rd grade, 5th grade, and then after that, it's kind of completely erased from the scientific curriculum and is never touched again. So obviously, the simple version of the scientific method is you have a hypothesis, you then go out in your environment. You don't even have to be in the lab. You just go out in your environment, look at the information at hand, collect observations, look at them all together, and then either accept or reject your hypothesis. That's the scientific method. That is the entire basis of science. Every time I write a grant, every time I do an experiment, every time I'm executing an experiment, the end goal is to either accept or reject my hypothesis. And you can do that with anything, not just science, human behavior. So that would be my chapter, and to make sure that students graduate from high school learning, understanding, and applying the scientific method.
That's awesome. Yeah, I read a book a while back called, I'm going to forget the author's name, but the book's title is Bad Science. And he goes over a lot of like quackery, out in the industry and stuff, how like a lot of it's not based off of any sort of factual information, but good marketing, a lot of good marketing out there.
And okay, honestly, I will say, I get scrutiny amongst my peers and in the field for like some of the endorsements I've done with like, say, FitAid and stuff. Because I think scientists are inherently skeptical of everyone else. Like most scientists are extremely arrogant and like to put themselves up on a pedestal.
Right.
So, like I've been accused of being a snake oil salesman by my colleagues. And I'm like, you have no idea how much behind the scenes, like fact checking I am doing, and like I like basically compile scientific literature databases for these companies. Like they care. And they don't want to be viewed as snake oil salesmen. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as they say, my favorite quote ever is, if you ain't got haters, your shit ain't popping. So
I can 100% agree with that. That's awesome. Thanks for listening to today's Cooldown. If for some ridiculous reason you are not subscribed to Garage Gym Athlete Programming, fix that problem right now. Go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial, get started with us today. Thanks for listening.